It's been a while since I've made one of these videos for the channel documenting my road to recovery after having a total parotidectomy and radiotherapy way back in 2017. And to be honest, I've been neglecting this channel a little bit, and I've recently seen that there's been quite a few comments and questions left on my videos. So I just felt like I needed to make a more updated one to answer some of those questions and also give you guys a bit of an update on how my health is post all of that stuff from 6 years ago, I think it was. So the most asked question I get is, did I have any physiotherapy to help with the recovery of my face? The answer to that is no. I had no real aftercare. After I had the surgery, it wasn't long after that I went through the radiotherapy. And then the only appointments I had following that were to see the consultant. And then around month 4 or month 5, I had another appointment to have a needle put into my muscle of my cheek. And then they zapped me with a bit of electricity to try and make my face move, and then they used the measurement that they got from that to sort of work out how much I'd recovered by, but it wasn't by any means a session to help me with moving my face. For the most part, it was just all natural. The only time I did any sort of physiotherapy was light stretches to get a bit of mobility back in my neck, but that was me working things out as I went along. One thing I discovered very quickly, is it when you've just had the surgery and you've just seen how you look in the mirror and you have all those horrible thoughts go through your head, the first thing you start feeling and thinking is that I want to get better. I want to get better. I want to get better. And you you try to force yourself to heal quicker, and that's not a good idea. You can't force your body to heal any quicker. You can't force your face to move quicker by trying to do exercises and going through the motions. You've just got to be patient. And I know in my first video I said like, oh, I'm looking at my finger to try and get my eye closed and I'm going to do this. And I soon discovered that I was overexerting myself trying to do that, and it was starting to make things feel a little bit worse for me. Um, so I just kind of let my body naturally heal. And then when I started to get a little bit of movement back, then I started thinking about just doing some light stretches to help with my neck moving because it was getting really sore and tight. And one thing I found is that when I was walking around and moving around, I would turn like this to look at things instead of just like turning with my head. So mobility, stretch wise, I was just basically just turning it from left to right very gently every 3 or 4 days, something like that. I don't really remember exactly. I was just kind of taking my time and then until I could comfortably move my head. And even now, it's still a little bit stiff even now, but occasionally I'll give it a bit of a stretch, try and keep some of that mobility going. Another question I get asked is to do with sensation. Do I get any feeling in my face now? So after having the surgery, it was completely dead. It just felt like a dead weight. I couldn't feel anything from here, across here, all the way down and around here. It was like it was completely missing. It was the weirdest feeling, but it also felt really heavy. The heaviness started to subside when my face was starting to heal more and get more strength back in the muscles, and it was visually more noticeable. It was less sagged and it was starting to lift more. That weightiness started to alleviate over time as my face got its strength back to hold itself. In terms of the numbness, that stuck around for a heck of a long time. Your body's pretty amazing though, and it does naturally adapt to things after so many weeks. So I didn't quite notice it as much. The only time I would notice the numbness is if there was like a strong breeze or something, and one side of my face could feel it, and the other side I couldn't really feel anything. But as the years have gone by, I've certainly had more and more feeling come back in my face. In fact, now, it's not too dissimilar from the other side of my face. I can feel my fingers when I touch, um, on the surface level at least. I can feel my ear. There are places where it feels a bit numb still, but generally I've got quite a bit of feeling back in my face. One of the other questions I get asked about is eyelids. So let me cover eyelids for you. So, with obviously, after you've had the surgery, your eyelids probably not going to be functioning correctly and you're not going to be able to close it. So, it's really, really important that you keep your eye lubricated throughout the day. I think the product I used, don't quote me on this, I'm trying to go off memory, was one called Viscous Tears, and it was like a lubricant. It was like a thick gel. I put this in 3 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and then once before going to bed. Now, it's really important that you keep your eye lubricated because if you don't, it's going to dry out really quickly because there's no eyelid there to, move a bit of fluid across and keep it moist. And if you go to sleep and you haven't done it, you're going to wake up with the most intense dry eye ever. I remember that I take my eyelid down at night time and I'd put the lubricant in, but I didn't do a good job of taping my eyelid shut, and it popped open during the night. So I slept with one eye open. I mean, if the missus woke up and turned over, she would have had a bit of a fright. I remember waking up in the morning and it just felt like someone took a can of Right Guard 48-hour ultra protective antiperspirant and just blasted me in the eye with it. Kind of akin to when you wear daily disposables and you forget to take them out at night and you sleep in them and you get that horrible dry sticky eye in the morning. It's just not nice. When it comes to actually making sure your eyelids tape down, I'm going to give you a tip. I know this isn't tape, it's a massive thick piece of Velcro. Your tape's probably going to be half the width of this, and it'll be like a surgical tape. Um, so the rookie error I used to make was I used to tape my eye vertically, and I'd tape it from the eyebrow, run the tape along the groove here over the eyelid, and then down to my face. The issue with this was that it didn't really secure the eye very well, and your eyelid could easily pop it open. And the other problem is if you've just put your eye lubricant in and you've got some of the residue on the top of your lid or across the skin where the tape's going to be, or at the lower part here, the tape's tackiness gets affected and it can't quite stick onto your skin. So, again, that's another recipe for the tape popping off. So, the way I used to do it, or the way that I discovered worked best for me, was I would put the viscous tears in. I'd take like a little cotton thing and just, make sure there wasn't too much residue on my eyelid that was going to cause a problem for the tape. And then I used to take the tape and do it horizontally. So I'd have more of a surface area running across my eyelid, and then I'd tape it down to here, just below my eyelid. And that seemed to work pretty well for me. I never really had any problems with that method, but it's a lot of trial and error trying to figure out a routine because no one ever shows you this stuff. So you got to work it out for yourself. Now, in terms of the recovery, one thing I was very conscious of was my diet and making sure that I didn't have any junk foods or pre-processed crap. Because of it being such a big surgery, I needed to be serious about what I was putting in my body and that the stuff I was putting in was going to help with the recovery. So I had quite a protein rich diet with, leafy greens and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, I even had some recovery sort of like protein shakes. I don't know if that was a good idea or not because it did make me sort of put on a little bit of weight, but I don't know. I guess it didn't harm me too much. I'm not a dietitian, so don't take my advice on it. But make sure you're eating healthily though throughout the recovery process, and you're obviously drinking a lot of water, and make sure you're not eating too much crap and stuffing your face with cake and things. It's not a good idea, I guess. Now moving on, one of the other questions I get asked about is my lip. Have I had any more movement come back in my lip? No, that's the only thing really that hasn't changed at all since my last video. It's still a little bit. I mean, I can feel my lip. I just can't really move parts of it. There's a part that moves and there's a part that doesn't move. So, um, that's always going to be a thing, but it doesn't really bother me. I can still talk fine. It doesn't affect me when I'm eating. Nothing comes out of my mouth. So, yeah, it's just something to live with. The only weird thing I've noticed since I've healed is that when I blink with this eye, It's like someone's got a string and they're pulling this lip up here. Really random. But yeah, that's about it really. Now moving on, I want to give you guys a little update into um, my current health situation. So post surgery, all that stuff, absolutely fine. Post radiotherapy, I've started to experience some of the long term side effects. A few years ago, I got diagnosed with lymphedema, which is basically a continuous swelling. In a nutshell, when you've had radiotherapy, your lymphatic system or the network of roads that fluids travel down around that area become really affected because you've just been zapped with radiotherapy, and over time they start to find it more difficult to move fluids around. So if I am lying down flat for a prolonged period of time, I will start to get a bit of swelling, i.e., if I'm sleeping at night. So now I have to make sure that I'm propped up with two pillows. And if I'm still getting some swelling, I have this big foam wedge that I put on the bed that really props me up. And gravity will help pull those fluids down into areas of my lymphatic system where it's kind of working better. Um, and the only real thing you can do with lymphedema is to do gentle massages or lymphatic massages where you're just gently brushing your skin and trying to work the buildup of fluids away from one area to an area that's more healthier and can cope with it. It's the one thing that's taken me some time to get to grips with because it is very uncomfortable when you get swelling and it can be very irritating. My top eyelid comes out like a balloon and it can become very heavy. And another thing that you'll be prone to is infections. Before I got diagnosed, I was starting to go through a period of getting repeated eye infections, and I'd get pus coming out of my tear ducts because I'd be swollen up, and it's just because the fluids had been sitting there for so long they had nowhere to go. So yeah, the lymphedema side of it is it's something that you have to learn to live with and manage. Things that do tend to affect it, I find, are stress. If I get really stressed out, that causes it to flare up more. If it's really muggy and humid and warm and your body's sweating a lot, that seems to cause it to cause that seems it to cause it to cause that causes it to start swelling. I've already said stress, I think. Um, Weight as well, when I was a little bit on the heavier side, that definitely seemed to cause an issue. And also, I've got pre-existing health conditions. I'm asthmatic. I've got hay fever, allergies, and if I have particularly bad hay fever or grass cuttings or anything that affects my hay fever, then that can seem to trigger it off, weirdly enough. The other issues I've developed are to do with my ear. There's a tube in your ear that regulates pressure. I always forget the name of it. And since having radiotherapy, it's been kind of not functioning properly. So there are times where it's not fully pressurized, so it feels like I'm a little bit muffled. If you think about, when you're flying up in a plane or you're going over a really tall hill and you feel your ears about to pop, it's kind of like that all the time. I'm always trying to pop my ears essentially so I can hear things. Um, I also get random episodes of tinnitus that happen in my ear when I turn my head a certain way sometimes, and if I have my head and neck a certain way as well, my hearing sort of feels like someone's doing this, putting their hand over it. It's a bit strange, and it's only started really happening over the last few years. So I am kind of concerned that there are going to be more problems to do with my hearing later on down the line that I need to be vigilant with, and go to an audiologist and be checked up more often with, especially with what I like doing. But we'll see. Um, the other thing I tend to experience since having radiotherapy as well is I still get random bouts of fatigue. I can't quite explain it. I never used to have it before, but there are times where I just feel more drained than I should do, even after not doing an awful lot. Um, I don't know if it's more psychological, but it's only since the radiotherapy. It's really bizarre, really, really bizarre. But maybe you guys, I don't know, maybe some of you guys have experienced that as well. Um, and another thing I tend to experience is some random pain and not pain, but random discomfort in my neck occasionally. especially around the back here. It's just there's nothing there. It's just that it just feels a bit uncomfortable sometimes. It could be to do with lymphedema. I don't know. But generally speaking, though, I'm pretty healthy. I feel well. Um, I don't know really what more to tell you guys. But if you have any questions, obviously leave them in the comments box below. And if you're going through this and it's still early days, I feel for you. I know exactly how it felt, especially the mental strain of all of it. It's a lot to weigh on your mind and a lot to process, and it's very difficult. So make sure you've got nice friends and family around you to keep your spirits up, and keep yourself occupied. Don't get lost in your own thoughts. Do things that you enjoy doing, and avoid thinking silly things. I'll leave a link to that group down below. It's called Parotid People on Facebook if you're interested in joining it. I think I forgot to put it in some of the other videos. And I hope you're doing well. I wish you all the best, and I'll make more of an effort with this channel and do more of these videos. So see you later.